For Donald Trump's annual New Year's party at Mar-a-Lago, guests were expecting Trump to be there, but he bailed on his own guests last minute and took Air Force One to Washington, D.C. and left them to party on their own. Now, I don't really care about that. The ticket sales increased after it was reported that Donald Trump would be at the party, and then he decided to leave Mar-a-Lago. There are conflicting reports as to why he left. Some believe that he flew back to DC for this January 6th ceremonial event where the vice president is supposed to confirm the electoral votes. Obviously, we have Republicans in both the House and the Senate who are going to challenge those votes, and some believe that Trump made that journey back to DC to witness and experience that. I don't think that's what it is. I mean, why would he do that so early? There were other reports saying that he was getting irritable with Melania. Don't know if that's true. But the point is, all these people got left to party on their own at Mar-a-Lago with Trump's kids, which ticket sales for the New Year's Eve gala have steadily increased since Trump took office and reached up to $1,000 this year, by the way. Bookings for the party increased when it was clear Trump would travel to Florida for the holidays after skipping his traditional visit for Thanksgiving. As many as 500 tickets were sold for this year's event. So let's take a look at what this fun event looked like. The bunch of dorks dancing around without masks. There they are, they're dancing. I'm sure many lower lip bites are happening. I think that's Vanilla Ice. He was one of the performers there you go, there's Don Jr. So obviously it should be noted that they're indoors, no masks, but remember they're also in the state of Florida, which essentially has no restrictions, none. Bars are open, restaurants are open, businesses are open, people aren't social distancing, there's no mask mandate. So that virus has been ripping through the state of Florida, but it's been ripping through the state of California as well, where we do have restrictions in place. And it's because people aren't following the restrictions. People do have COVID fatigue. I'm not making excuses for them, but it is the reality of the situation. Local police departments are busting up parties that are taking place. Some businesses refuse to follow through with the shutdown orders. They're still operating in San Diego. Apparently that's something that's happening quite often. It's just it. And then, by the way, one other thing, you know how there have been reports of a more contagious strain of the virus? Well, now it's been confirmed that that strain is in fact in the United States. Governor Cuomo in New York said that they found that strain in New York. So it's probably all over the country at this point. So it's pretty scary stuff, especially when you consider the death toll. Hundreds of thousands of Americans already dead from this pandemic.
Yeah, it's more contagious. I read that they found here in California, also in Colorado and in Florida. But, what's interesting, I was having a conversation with my sister about this because I grew up in Florida and I live in California. And, we were talking about how there are no restrictions there and restrictions here, and the amount, the numbers, how bad they are in both places. And the only thing that I kept thinking about is that privilege is just as toxic as ignorance. And when you think about California, where people think it's such a progressive place, it really isn't. Los Angeles and San Francisco, but when you think about everything else in Florida, in California, it really isn't as progressive as the state. There are a lot of red areas throughout. They wanted to separate a couple of years ago. They wanted to get away from the liberal parts of Los Angeles. But I also think that we like to attribute this to people who are Republican and belong to those red clusters. And I want to push back and say, no, there's a lot of privilege in this state. A lot of people who have money and feel like they should not have to give up their great lives because of this pandemic. And a lot of the reason why people who are in the middle of the country and in the South really can't stand Los Angeles and Hollywood and their privileged ways of thinking. Because when you think about Donald Trump and his village, the Village of Idiots, the confederacy of dunces that he rolls with, they are at the intersection of Hollywood and DC. That's not just them being politicians. That is a very Hollywood family, very privileged elite group of people. And that really is a problem in California. It's a lot of privileged people who don't want to give up their social, their social clout, and they don't want to give up because of the pandemic. And we are going to see a lot more damage in weeks to come, because Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year, they were out there acting a fool. You saw a video of Cardi B saying that she flew to Florida because she thought Florida was going to be open because she wanted to party for the New Year, and it was closed, and it was like a complaint. And I rock with Cardi B, but we have to stop thinking that because we have access and privilege that we have the right to, just participate in this reckless behavior that's causing a lot of people who don't have privilege their lives.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, people with money, with power, have access to a completely different type of healthcare compared to everyone else. And so Cardi B might get sick with coronavirus, but she's going to be fine. And I wish that were true of every other person that lives in this country, in the world, but that's not the case, right? And so one other thing to keep in mind, in places like Los Angeles County, there are no hospital beds left.
That's right.
So it's just, please just think about other people, think about our healthcare workers. There was just another protest, by the way. I mean, you mentioned Los Angeles, and I think it's important to show that there is a conservative community in Los Angeles. There's no question. There was just a protest at a Ralph's, which is, by the way, Kroger in other parts of the country, in Century City. So these anti-maskers, COVID shutdowns, like they showed up at this Ralph's and they just started, vocally attacking the workers there. Why are you going after Ralph's workers? These are people who, first of all, we're lucky that we have the ability to go buy our groceries. But keep in mind that these are people who are underpaid. They're working every day, underappreciated. They're putting their lives at risk by working. And these people are coming in and antagonizing them and attacking them. It's just absolutely disgusting. But that's what we see in almost every political situation in this country right now, where you have the powerless attacking the powerless. And in the meantime, Cardi B's looking for a party, and I don't mean to pick on Cardi B, but it is kind of indicative of what we're seeing in like these two different worlds operating simultaneously at a moment of crisis in the country.
Yeah, no, and it's so funny because there are so many people in this city and in this state who consider themselves liberal until it's time for them to have to follow the rules of all the other people. They're very liberal and they will speak on it and they consider themselves blue until it's time to sit your ass down and just sit it down, because people are dying and it's not, you don't know 10 people who've died of the flu. But you can name 10 people who've had coronavirus, who've been on ventilators. I lost friends. We just lost Shabadoo Canones, who was a dancer, the godfather of street dance, to COVID, the day before the New Year. So I just think it's interesting how people vacillate between what they believe in and what they stand for until they have to follow the rules that everybody else follows. And that's why we see such big numbers for Donald Trump and people who are not willing to admit publicly that they support him, because there are a lot of people who identify with that privilege and they stand for it. They really stand for it.
Yeah. God. I'm trying to think of something light to finish off the post game with, because all this stuff is just so even a Mar-a-Lago story that I meant for fun purpose. Like, how can you have fun with that? Especially when you see these people being so irresponsible. What happened?
Those white people fighting the beat when Vanilla Ice and the Beach Boys were singing the whitest songs possible. And you saw them fighting the beat like it was a mayonnaise leak. Like they were just struggling because it was performative, right? It was a bunch of people pulling out their cameras to let people know that they were partying at Mar-a-Lago. And it was just very fun to watch when Play That Funky Music White Boy came on, because Donald Trump Jr. looked like lost. Like he was it was like a scene from Forrest Gump. And if you want to laugh, they have like this montage video of them going through the songs. And it's hilarious. You have to see them when Play That, they were like really like pronouncing Play That Funky Music White Boy. It was really funny. I was like, look at them.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.